Hello, and thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be taking a look at an argument for the flat Earth from science. Let's have a look. Also, for the purposes of this video, I will be editing down some of the blank spaces and that sort of thing, as Jamie does most of his videos in a blog-style format, which is fine, but I just want you to realize that the jump cuts are all mine, but I'm not cutting out any of the substance of his argument. The link will be down below, that you may see it and see that I am being as honest and straightforward in my response as I can.
Hey guys, how are you all doing? So, the thing I tend to hear a lot from the globe defending side is the words science and scientific and, those types of words. And they say, that there's, scientific evidence for the globe.
Well, Jamie, there is evidence for a globe Earth. We'll get into what that is in a bit, but there's plenty of evidence.
Scientific proof for the globe, and the flat Earth's unscientific. I've made a video about this a while ago, but, I thought I'd, kind of talk about it again, because to me it's like...
Alright, I was gonna go through by hand and just edit out some of the blank spaces and that kind of thing, but it's 100% like this. So instead, I'm going to run it through Audacity. Audacity is going to take out all of the silent spots and tune up the audio nicely automatically for me, so I don't have to. The only downside is I can't really keep the audio synced with the video easily that way, so I'm just going to leave his picture here as a placeholder when he's talking, and then switch back to the birds when I'm talking. They're very nice birds, aren't they? I took a picture of them on a dam. Pretty cool stuff. So, I'll be right back as soon as I run all this through.
They keep throwing this word about, and, to me, science is simply, observation and experimentation. Obviously, it's like, that's as simple as it really gets.
Also, Jamie, just a bit of constructive criticism. Please type what you want to say, then read it. I realize it will take a little more time, but having a script will eliminate all those things I just highlighted, which are very distracting once you notice people doing them. I just wanted to point that out. I believe that your content is actually decent, and I want to help you improve it. But as far as your point goes, you are correct. Science is about observation, and what we observe is basically science. That's how it works.
But these kind of preachers, these dogmatic preachers, they convolute everything and they make it way more complicated than it has to be.
I similarly also agree that some people read too much into the evidence which exists and try to cherry pick from it the things that only support their view.
And instead of throwing out the model in favor of something probably a bit more simplistic to explain reality, then they add in even more complications to try and kind of explain away an impossibility or a flaw in the model that they've presented.
So I'm curious, if you believe the Earth is flat, how do you explain the eclipses, both the solar and the lunar? How would you explain things like the shadows being cast from things at different latitudes? How would you explain time zones not being the same on opposite sides of the planet for a globe, considering the sun would be overhead all the time if it's flat? Or does the sun go under the Earth and goes only over the North Pole, even though it appears to be in the south from the northern hemisphere and in the north from the southern hemisphere? Similarly, how far away do you say the sun is if the Earth is flat? To account for the fact that you cannot see the sun from Melbourne and from England at the same time. Also, I'm curious why we can see, for example, California and Ohio in the same picture from the ISS, but we can't actually see Sandusky from Niagara. I mean, shouldn't the atmosphere prevent us from being able to see Ohio from the ISS when it's over California because you're going through so many miles of it at the angle you'd have to go through to see both of them at the same time. So why can't I do it from the ground? Similarly, how do you explain that GPS works if the Earth is flat and relativity is incorrect? Like, for example, how does the information you're sending get to me if time-space isn't expanding and electrochemistry doesn't work the way we think it does? But anyway, I digress. You're not dismissing those ideas, so continue. Does Flat Earth work with all those ideas? I don't know. I'm sure you're going to clarify with the science that you say proves Earth isn't a spinning ball or a sphere or, okay.
Or that they push. So, for instance, when people find there's a lack of curve, these science preachers, and they're not.
I am a preacher for the First Church of Atheism and also for the Church of Dudism. I am not a preacher of science. I am merely presenting facts. If you believe that science is a religion, that's irrelevant and is in another conversation all its own. What you're supposed to be doing is presenting me with the evidence, the science, you claim that proves Earth is not a ball. So it doesn't matter what I say. What matters is you've got science that proves Earth isn't a ball. Doesn't matter what people like me say. If you have the evidence, present it. Do not ramble on about everyone else but you. You are making the claim, says it right in your title. Show us the evidence. Show us the science that refutes the theories that are already in place, which have not actually been shown wrong yet.
Really, scientists are just kind of, they're more kind of religious fundamentalists, I would say.
And again, that has absolutely no bearing on the science you claim to have. See, you and I can be preachers for everything under the sun. That doesn't change the fact that you claim that real science proves Earth isn't a spinning ball. What you're performing is an ad hominem in the form of a poisoning the well argument, and I would really like it if you'd stick to your arguments from your alleged real science.
Dogmatic, because to me it's like that. What they'll do is they'll say that that's we're seeing that there's not a curve because of light refraction.
I'm not sure who you're talking about that says the reason you cannot see the curve is because of light refraction. Generally, there are one of two reasons you cannot see the curve. The first one is you're too close to the Earth because you are 6 foot tall, and the curvature of the Earth is about 24 miles or so to the horizon from any point you look at ground level. Now, if you want to test this, you can, for example, wait until sunset. Get a cherry picker, wait for the Earth to disappear over the flat horizon, if you think it's flat. Raise yourself up about 6 to 8 feet in it. You can also do this by climbing a ladder to your roof, if you're in an area where this is logical. Obviously, if it goes behind a mountain or something, the 6 foot or so ain't gonna help you. But if you're somewhere reasonably flat and there's no trees in the way and that kind of thing, and you can watch it go down over the horizon, then raise yourself up about 10 or 12 feet, maybe go to the top of a tall building, taking the elevator, and you'll be able to see the sun again because your horizon will have changed by getting a little bit further away from the ground. So again, the first reason it looks flat is because the curve isn't very much over those 24 miles. The second reason is atmospheric lensing is what you're trying to say, and that doesn't affect whether or not you can see the curve, although you can actually measure the curve with it. But pro tip, atmospheric lensing doesn't really work if the Earth isn't round. Because I want you to imagine you've got a magnifying glass that is neither concave nor convex. It's just a sheet of glass. Not even a Fresnel lens. Just a piece of glass. Remember, glass has a different refraction index than the air. So I want you to find me a magnifying glass which has no curve to it that effectively magnifies things to demonstrate to me how the atmosphere, if it's laying on a flat surface, would cause you not to be able to see things, because as far as I can tell, If the Earth is flat and the atmosphere lays upon it, then you're not going to get the atmospheric lensing, you see. At least not to an extent that would stop you from seeing things that are more than the horizon away from you. In fact, you should be able to see things as far away from you on the ground as you can see roughly over the ground. And we know, because we have powerful telescopes, that we can actually see pretty much all the way through the atmosphere on a tangent with something like the ISS. Again, it's lensed because it's round. If it were flat, the lensing wouldn't be there in the way you're thinking it would be. It would be different, but you would be able to see a lot more. Because as it stands, we can take things that sink below the horizon, rise up, and see them again, like boats. Again, if you want to do this, wait for a boat to disappear over the horizon by the ocean, then take yourself up about 20 foot, and watch the boat come back into focus. You'll be able to see it, not because of atmospheric lensing, but because you've increased how far the radius is that you can see by going further away from the plane that's created by the tangent of your eyeballs on the ground, or line of sight to the thing far away. So either way, I still don't understand what argument you're trying to make here, because you're not making it effectively.
And, well, that's their excuse.
Again, I think that might be a straw man. I don't know whose excuse that is, but it's not one that I've heard.
That's to me what it is. It's an excuse to explain away a flaw in the model because...
I'm sorry, but you haven't shown me your science that shows whatever flaw you're talking about, because I'm not following you. What's the flaw you think we're trying to cover up so that I may address it?
If it's a ball, there has to be a definite amount of curve, and if it isn't there, then it isn't ball because if they're claiming gravity is a thing, then
okay. If statements are not evidence. If unicorns can fly, then why aren't they made of birds? Like, you can say, if anything, that's not scientific evidence for them. So you believe the Earth is flat, and you believe that gravity is not correct. So what do you propose keeps everything from floating away when you're close to the Earth, but also allows the moon and sun to stay in their respective orbits? The moon going around the Earth and sun, the sun going around the center of the universe, and so on. And also, if the Earth doesn't have gravity, I mean, why would it being a sphere outright prevent it from having gravity? I mean, also, if the Earth is flat, what specifically prevents gravity from existing and explaining what we observe? Like, why can't the flat Earth have gravity? Again, what exactly keeps us on the Earth? If there's no force that actually joins us to the ground, then why can't I just throw things up and they just keep going, for example? How does the atmosphere lay on the Earth if there is no gravity? I mean, flatter sphere, how do things stay here?
Obviously, gravity is supposed to, have this equal pull on it from every angle, like kind of, from North Pole to South Pole to the equator, everything's being supposedly drawn toward the equator.
Well, no, gravity doesn't pull equally, per se. Gravity actually pulls you less at the top of a mountain, for example, than it does at the bottom of a valley, like Death Valley. And it doesn't pull toward the equator. The equator is wider because the Earth is spinning. Dynamic forces are complicated, so we'll stay away from that for a minute.
And they say, it's slightly wider at the, just below the equator, but you wouldn't get much variation in the measurement. Not as, you wouldn't get, if the Earth, is actually a ball, it has to be a lot bigger. They have to have way, kind of miscalculated the size, and I don't think that's by accident at all. If it's, it would have to be about, a few times bigger than what they're claiming it to be, so there's no way they could have just miscalculated it.
All right, and I'll ask again, what do you presume to be the explanation? I mean, as I pointed out, the equator bulges because the Earth is spinning. But again, gravity does not pull equally. The further you are away from the center of mass, the less effect gravity has on you as a square function, or inverse square function rather. So that if you go twice as far away, it has a quarter of the effect on you. And again, I don't know what you're talking about when you say it has to be larger to get these gravitational fluctuations. Again, you say you've got the evidence, you've got the science that proves Earth isn't a ball, but you also haven't shown me why, if it's a disk, why is the gravity the same at whatever you think the edge of the Earth is, as it is in whatever you think the center of the Earth is? Like, is the center the North Pole or the South Pole, or is the center the equator? And do you think there are continents on the top side and bottom side of this flat Earth? I'm curious, because it will require a different explanation to show you why science refutes whatever claim you're trying to make. But since you're not making any, let's move right along.
Because it would mean that there'd have to be more land out there, and and people have been down in Antarctica, they would know if land ends beyond there. They couldn't have just kind of miscalculated it unless what they're actually doing is they're actually intentionally hiding something.
So I'm curious to know, what do you think they're hiding? Where do you think the extra Antarctica is? Again, with your world being flat, do you think Antarctica is around the entire flat Earth? Why can't you understand that it's a ball? Or do you think that there's Antarctica's on the bottom side or something? Or do you think Antarctica's in the middle, like it's the center point of the flat Earth? Or do you think the flat Earth runs like a treadmill or something? Again, I'm not sure what you're trying to say because I don't understand what you actually think of the flat Earth as looking like. Draw me a picture, because I've got a globe here that demonstrates how it works pretty well. But if you've got a better explanation, demonstrate it visually, because I don't understand your words. What are they hiding?
And if it is a ball, like I said, it's to hide more land. And even if it's flat, they could be still hiding more land.
Alright, you said in the title of the video, real science proves Earth isn't a spinning ball, must watch. So you're claiming there is land which is hidden somewhere inside or beyond the edge of your flat Earth. So go there and show us. Do science.
But if it's flat, there's other questions like, well, if it's flat, then that means there might be like a kind of firmament above or whatever, and it's like when you apply real science, you're like, okay, there's no curve. It's either a lot bigger or it's just not a ball. That's to me science, because when you use your logic and that's not exactly science, but science is more about.
So you're telling me science isn't just saying you think it is something, but your entire video so far has only been you saying you think it is something.
About kind of experiments and things that prove or disprove something.
Correct. Science is about the data you have. So we need some data. Man. You can't just say, well, I think. You have to say, here's the evidence that points away from it.
So if you have like a hypothesis, then someone says that I think the Earth's a ball, and someone says, well, why? And then somebody says, well, because someone might say, well, it's because the
2 points. First one, have a script, because you just spent a lot of time saying nothing. Second, it doesn't matter what I might say. What matters is whether or not you have evidence that agrees or disagrees with it.
Lengths of the shadows between not between. I mean, the lengths of the shadows 500 miles apart from each other.
See, here's the thing though. The length of the shadows demonstrates a globe Earth. This is very simple to demonstrate. Let's take a point near the equator when the sun is directly overhead and a stick coming directly out of the ground produces 0 shadow. At that moment, if we go north or south, the shadow adjusts north of the stick or south of the stick accordingly. Same thing if you go to the east or west. The shadow it casts will also be adjusted accordingly to the east or to the west. Because the Earth is spherical. Now, I want you to demonstrate with your next statement your real science that proves it's something else to be the next thing you tell me if you believe, based on evidence, that the Earth is flat rather than a globe and the length of the shadow has something to do with how you demonstrate that. Also, the other part of science is being able to predict the length of the sticks based on your hypothesis, or the shadows cast by them, compared to where the sun is at that point in the future, and to predict where it would have been at some point in the past. So 2 hours later, we know the sun is going to move, and the shadow on the stick at the equator is going to shift the other direction, because of the sun moving from our perspective around the globe Earth. So again, if you can show me a model that demonstrates this, please drop it in right here. This would be a really useful place for it.
Matches what you would expect on a ball Earth.
Or more importantly, does not match any of the flat Earth hypotheses presented that also match the other portions that describe how the planets move around us, or how water finds a level on a sphere, or how we can predict the days of the calendar, or how we can predict the length of any given day from here to the end of time, or at least until the sun burns out, or is simply compatible with just the other physical phenomena we can observe from our planet, like how the ships disappear over the horizon, and I cannot see the coast of Europe from the coast of America, even though I can do that from the ISS through exactly the same amount of atmosphere.
But the problem with that being a proof is that you have to assume that the sun is a long, long way away.
So show me a model where the sun goes around us, or above us, and doesn't need any corrections to give us the stick's shadow lengths. That also accounts for seasons.
And that's what they did, is they assumed it was a long, long way away, and that's if... But to me, that's... How can you use shadows as a proof of the shape of the Earth?
Well, for one, we didn't assume the sun was that far away. We can take the shadows, okay? The tip of the sticks to where they touch the ground, the edge of the shadow. That line is the direction to the edge of the sun from our perspective. Or in this case, the sun's far enough away, we can treat it as a point. And you go to the second stick, the third stick, the fourth stick, and you can take their lines, and you can draw a really gigantic triangle, or in our case, just a very narrow one. You can calculate the difference between where those 2 points are, or 3 or 4 or 5, and then wherever they all line up, we can take the angles of those shadows and determine where the sun is. This is basic geometry and trigonometry. If you do not understand it, that's fine. You don't have to. But you need to understand it before you can understand that we do not assume that it's really far away. We can demonstrate it.
A lot of the globers, they like to use, kind of astronomy and things like that as proof.
But not one single bit of the real science you claim to have that demonstrates that what I just said is wrong. Do you see your problem?
Looking up in the sky and, look at the other planets around. Well, they just look like discs. They could be spherical, but does that mean that the Earth has to be spherical too?
Even ignoring the fact that we've sent spaceships around them, we can look at Venus through a telescope and see that it lenses the light that comes through it, through its atmosphere. Do you understand? Venus is a lens, and lenses are curved. Do you understand?
It's hard to kind of say that, these things that we see are, light years away and all that.
No, it's not. Planets are not light years away. But the stars that are, we can actually use parallax from the summer to the winter, 2 different times of the year when we're on opposite sides of the sun, to determine how far away they are based on the much wider range we give ourselves in the direction we have to point our ground-based telescopes, which don't move from the Earth, to see those stars at a given time of night on those particular days of the year that we are furthest from ourselves on the other part of the year. And based on doing that over 100 or 1,000 years, we can even see how much we're moving through the galaxy and how much those stars are moving through the galaxy, because we take these readings on a bunch of stars that we can readily identify. So again, you haven't shown us how you can do that with a flat Earth.
They have to prove that to us.
Which we have done, and we can make predictions, and we can show you the math behind it. and the science behind it and the observations, and you can go out and make them yourselves, as I showed you with that graphic earlier. So now what you have to do is tell me why those observations are incorrect, if you want to do anything further here. You have to use that real science.
And they'll come up with these convoluted things, but simple tests and experiments prove it's not a bottle.
Specifically, which simple experiment, simpler than the ones I've demonstrated to you here, shows me that all the ones I've demonstrated here are incorrect. Remember, you said real science demonstrates this, which means you've done real science. You've done this simple experiment. So show me what it is, that I can replicate it and come to the same results as you.
You just have to look into it, guys.
I am looking into it. I came to your video expecting you to have some real science, must-see, to show me that's very simple, that you claim you can just present in the same way that I just did. But it's not there now, is it? I'll be waiting if you have it, but I don't think you do.
If you haven't already looked into it, you'll find out answers to everything from sunsets to what else is there, why, the day and night and all that.
You told me it was simple. People should look into it, but what do you want me to look into specifically? Which model of the flat Earth do you want me to look into? You do realize that the sunset is part of the reason we have the day and night. That's not a separate thing, right?
They come out with arguments, but nearly all of them have been debunked.
Okay, so pick one, give us the easy proof that it's wrong, and show us your proof for why parallax, for example, works to explain the motion and the distance between us and other things. Which flat Earth model has which hypothesis associated with it that says that parallax is incorrect and that you can't actually determine the distance things are away from us by measuring the angles that we view them at from two different points? Because to me, that's pretty simple. And for whatever reason, it always brings us back to the fact that planets are spherical, as are most other massive objects at the planetary scale or larger. Again, I'm waiting. You say it's simple. You shouldn't have to tell me to do your work for you and have me look into it instead of you providing an example.
There's not obviously a definite answer to it because people are still working on it.
So there's not actually a definite answer at all. You can't even agree that the other people who think the Earth is flat, same as you, have it correct. Like, you don't even agree that their models are correct, but you're sure that one of them says that mine is wrong. So, we're gonna, disagree with them, we're gonna, tell them, that we don't know which model is right, even though we have evidence for which model is right, but definitely the globe, model can't be right, because, one of our flat Earth models is right because, I don't know which one, because there's no evidence for it, but, definitely one of the flat Earth models, I don't, have evidence for, it's definitely right and the globe one isn't, even though, the flat Earth one, we don't even know that they're correct because we don't, have evidence, but, we know that the sphere one, can't, be right, because,
But it doesn't mean it's wrong just because we don't have every single answer.
So the globe Earth isn't wrong just because flat Earth doesn't have all the answers. I had to think about that one for a little bit, but it's exactly what he said. So anyway, that just broke my brain. Okay, enough with the act. That's gonna be it for today. If you enjoyed that, click the upvote or the like, thumbs up, Damn it, I'm still doing it. Go ahead and share this. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. The flat Earth just flattened my brain like a coin. And as always, this has been Reverend JR, reminding you to stay rotund and signing off. And also, if you made it this far, congratulations, you deserve a reward. I think I had 5 aneurysms already, and that's not even something to joke about.